Welcome to Hops News, the trusted source in beer culture news. Here's your host, Jay Brew.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Hops News. Man, it's kind of, I tell this I think every time that we're on, right? Like the last minute stuff that goes on behind the scenes is kind of wild, but it's always fun when you open it up to new people that's not really been a part of the show before. And literally, as we're counting down, people are popping in, and I'm trying to get them situated. So it might take us a minute, but we'll get people situated, and we'll get to know some new faces tonight. I think this is the first time for both of them. This is the second time that we've kind of done the Content Creators Happy Hour, and I'll give you just a little idea of what I hope to accomplish with this, right? Like content creators in every space of whatever social media it is that you're on, like content creators put in a lot of time and effort to do what it is that they do. And to be honest with you, most of them that I know aren't ones with millions of followers that are doing it to put, food on the table. They're just kind of doing it for the passion and the love at what they do. So I'm interested to hear of everybody that's doing it and other people that are doing it. Like, what's the goal, right? Like we've talked about the goals with Hops News and, what we hope to accomplish and why we do it and what we do here. But I'm always interested in why people do what it is that they do and kind of what their goal behind it is. So we'll get a couple more people on here to talk about that here in just a minute. But before we do, let's go check in with Lauren down in Orlando, Florida. I guarantee it's hot down there tonight, but let's go check in with Lauren down there. Lauren, what's the balmy, 90 degrees, 80% humidity? What's the situation in Orlando? Uh-oh, I think you're muted.
Yes, I was driving home from downtown Disney at about 8 o'clock, and it was 91 degrees. So it is nice and balmy, but I'll take it over shoveling snow any day. So I am sipping on a delicious double IPA from Tripping Animals, one of my favorite breweries. This one's actually a collab with Equilibrium, and it's got Galaxy, Enigma, and some marshmallow hops in it. And you can see that sweet can art because they always have the best can art.
Very nice.
But yeah, it's going good down here. Very excited for next week. We leave Wednesday to go to Nashville for our Hops News trip, our first official Hops News trip. So I'm very excited. Can't wait to have some Nashville beers and meet Brad in person and meet Corey in person and hang out with you guys and share some beers in real life, not just over a computer screen.
Yeah, yeah, Lauren. This has been a planned event that has literally been 3 years now in the making. I think when we first started talking to Brad and first planning to open Common Law Brewing there in Spring Hill, Tennessee. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he had planned to open it later the first year of COVID, right? Like the fall of the COVID year.
Yeah, and of course, the few beers he sent me were all phenomenal, which just makes me, anytime you have a good beer, you're like, oh, I bet it's even better on tap in the tap room. So I'm very excited to have that I think it's the Supreme Court Juiced Up. So very excited to have that on tap. I saw on his website they have it right now, so he better still have it on Friday.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not one to follow Untapped ratings, but you said it. Like I've not had a bad beer from those guys, and they've definitely been very, very giving in their sharing throughout the years as they develop their brand and their recipes and the beers that they're going to focus on, and that sort of thing. I've literally not had a bad beer from those guys. And again, I don't put a lot of weight on Untapped ratings, but if you go on there on Untapped and look at their ratings since they've been open, they're pretty respectable, right? Like,
yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, yeah, it does not. But obviously, just being opened up, I'm excited to get out there. I'm excited to drink some beer with some people that we've known for, it seems like years. Over what we've
during the beginning of the pandemic. So yeah,
it seems like years. Like they've been a part of literally a family that we've just known through social media for a long time. And Friday evening, we're going to get to drink a beer with them, Lauren. I'm jacked about that opportunity.
Yes, and Brad is just so knowledgeable about beer. So I think it's going to be fun to get to talk to him in person and not just on the Zooms or on the podcast. So. I'm ready to beer geek out with some other beer geeks. It's going to be so much fun.
It certainly will. It'll be a good time. And we've talked about it a little bit in our Facebook group, the Hops News Family Facebook group. If you're interested in that, you can follow any of our links, join the Patreon. You can get in on that. What we are going to do Saturday on Brew Day, we're doing Friday evening starting at 5 o'clock, Common Law Brewing in Spring Hill, Tennessee. Common Law has been gracious enough to host a bottle share, kind of meet and greet bottle share, bring in some beer from wherever. I'm coming in from North Carolina, Virginia, North Carolina. Lauren's coming in from Florida. I think we have a few others that will come in from out of town as well. Bring a bottle with you and share it at Common Law on Friday evening. But Saturday, Brad is allowing the crew and the Hops News family to be a part of a brew day. And the brew that he has planned sounds absolutely phenomenal. This has been something else that we've talked about for a few years. As Hops News and the crew is collaborating with a first brew with a brewery, and it's going to happen that Saturday. I'm pretty excited about that beer, Lauren. Uh-oh, did I lose her? I may have lost her.
No, I keep hearing my kids, so I keep muting, and then I keep forgetting I'm muted.
There you go.
This isn't our normal recording night, so there's people in the house.
So you can't keep them quiet or kick them out beforehand.
Right. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to watching them dump all that cereal in there because I've never seen a beer like that brewed in real life. Like I've participated in a couple brew processes here in Orlando, like the Girls Pine Out or something like that. But yeah, it'll be fun to see that kind of beer made.
It certainly will. And I'll just being very honest with everybody, I've been around beer industry for a little bit, but I've never brewed a batch of beer from start to fermenter. I know that sounds pretty crazy, but I'm looking forward to it on that Saturday, and it couldn't happen with a better group of people or a better recipe from what Brad has shared with us. So looking forward to that. And as always, Lauren, looking forward to drinking a beer with your husband.
Yes, and this time without our kids around, so we don't have to have filters on.
There we go. Looking forward to that. Thanks for joining us tonight, Lauren. Let's go check in with the rest of them. So I hope I get these names right again. Let's go check in with Rye. Rye joined us from the TikTok group, the Discord and the TikTok group we're on. Rye, give us, introduce yourself. Let us know where you're joining us from this evening and what beer you sipping on.
Yeah, my name's Rye. Actual real name is Ryan, but nickname Rye. Got that one in college, drinking a lot of whiskey. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Been a home brewer for about 10 plus years or so. Haven't really done it recently just because of a small child. So it's been kind of tough to actually find any time to do anything, really.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, on social platforms, pretty much I go by Blackjaw Brew. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, wherever, by that username. I am drinking on, I just picked this up today. This is a Drekker. It's called Royal Bee. So it's a honey cream double IPA.
Very nice.
Oh, that looks beautiful. Yeah, they make some great beer.
Yeah, I mean, it's like real yellow. It's awesome. Just the smell off of this and the taste off of it is great.
It looks like a stunning beer. If it tastes half as good as it looks, you're in for a hell of a drink there.
It is. It's really phenomenal, to be honest with you. The honey just stands out right on the back end. It's really good.
Nice. All right, it definitely looks like you've done some home brewing. We look in your background there. It looks like you have some equipment. You definitely had the kegerator, all of that going on. And I can't help but notice your shirt, Cigar City Brewing, down there in Lauren's Way for sure. So definitely appreciate you joining us. Looks like you got a great beer there, and looking forward to hearing about what your goals were. We won't get that right away. We'll go check in with the other guest that has joined us tonight. But looking forward to hearing kind of what your goals are as a content creator, and also interested to hear about your styles, like what styles it is that you're brewing, and kind of where you find your sweet spot. As well. I'm always interested in talking to people that can brew beer because I've tried it once and it was absolutely abysmal. I'll probably never waste that time in my life or money that I spent trying to brew my first batch of beer.
It's very time consuming for sure.
It certainly is. But appreciate you joining us tonight, right? Let's go check in with Lucas. I believe his name is Lucas. Lucas, did I get it right?
Yeah. You're good.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you joining us. Where do you join us from tonight? Kind of what's your social media handles, networks, and what are you sipping on?
Sure. So my name is Lucas. I'm one of the two hosts of a craft beer podcast based out of Columbus, Ohio, called the Pine Pals Podcast. And currently, right now, I am drinking High Stepper IPA from the brewery that I am a cellar tech at. Crooked Can Brewing in Hilliard, Ohio.
And also in Winter Garden, Florida. That's so funny.
Yes. And the main one is in Winter Garden, Florida. Yes.
I actually had a Crooked Can beer at...
Yeah,
I had a Crooked Can New England IPA at Downtown Disney this afternoon. So who would have thought? You're in Ohio, I'm down here. Same brewery. I had no clue. That's really funny because you commented on that in the Discord and I was like, hey, wait a minute. It could just be a coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting to hear those connections, right? Somebody mentions a brewery from somewhere else. I think it's even more so nowadays, especially with some mergers and acquisitions that's going on. Like the lines that are crossed, the state lines especially, is kind of interesting. What do you know what the story is, Lucas, between the connection?
I believe just a couple of the owners, like they were down there, and I believe they were from Ohio originally, and they knew the owner of the one down in Winter Garden, and they decided to move up here and open up a second Crooked Can location. I believe that's what happened.
That sounds about like like every decision. There's really not a rhyme or reason behind it, but let's go ahead and make it and see how it works out for sure. Right, Lucas, I definitely appreciate you joining us tonight. I've certainly followed a little bit of your stuff since we've been in a part of that Discord. It's always great to talk to other podcasters and kind of looking forward to hearing about what your goals are. those sorts of things, especially coming up, and maybe even your work in the brewing and the beer industry, because it's always fun to talk to people like that for sure. So appreciate you joining us tonight.
Of course. Thanks for having me. And for everybody out there, you can find the Pint Pals podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of your podcast listening options. And also
I'm going to go follow right now.
Yeah, go check them out. Check out their content for sure. So, Rye, let's go back to the brewing a little bit before we start getting kicked off too deep. And let's talk about brewing around the clock, because we've got Lucas on here that's also involved in the beer world. So let's talk brewing a little bit before we start talking content creators. Rye, if somebody comes to your house and you've got the batch that you want to introduce somebody to, what is it?
My go-to is a pale ale, just straight American pale ale. It's very malty, the way that I brew mine. I like to use very, very heavy on malts and only single hops on mine. That's my go-to on my signature pale ale that I do.
And what single hop do you use?
I usually stick with Centennial. Only because when I was living at my old house, I grew Centennial in my backyard, so I would use the hops from my backyard to brew. So, yeah,
that's awesome.
Boy, you fancy.
I try to
making
be.
Like wet hopped.
I like it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Man, that's nice.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Take it up a notch.
That is awesome, man. And I definitely appreciate the pale ale approach. That was kind of one of the first beers when I first started working in the beer industry, that the brewery I was working for kind of nailed it. Beer they called the Spodiote for a little bit. They classified it as Appalachian ale because it was a pale ale with some oats in it. So it was a little bit unique. But man, I will tell you what, kind of like you, right? Like, it's hard to beat a good pale ale.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an all-around great style. I think that is, to be honest, I think it's underappreciated. Everybody's just so stuck on IPAs, or even now with the smoothie sours and the fruity beers and stuff like that. But when you get back to the basic and you can control a single pale ale that's just like dialed in, it is like, man, it's so refreshing on a hot day. It's great.
Yeah, it really is, for sure. I would certainly love to sit down with you and try one of your pale ales for sure. So, what kind of got you started into home brewing? What was the entry for you, and how long have you been into it?
So, like I said, I started home brewing probably in like 2013. I think was the first batch that I ever did. I actually went big with the first batch that I did. I went with the black IPA, which was kind of crazy for a home brewer. Like, just hey, go straight into something very complex, and it was crazy. But what got me into it was, back then, I mean, I'm kind of older, so back then the drinks that, like, the craft beers that we got into was like Magic Hat No. 9, Sierra Nevada. What was the other one? That Racer. What was that?
Bear Republic. Racer.
Yeah. So I mean, that was like really like the only things around that we could get back in the day that were different than your standard, domestic beers. Cleveland did have a craft brewery here called Crooked River, and that was one that was like well before its time, which kind of got me into home brewing. Was talking to some of those guys out and about in bars, and just getting into the craft beer scene. So it kind of just got me curious and said, what, I want to learn how to do this. So I set out on an adventure and started reading up on the internet, joining forums, and just having at it and just trying my own thing.
That's awesome, man. It's always good to hear the stories to get people into craft beer or into the beer kind of genre, like the home brewing and that sort of thing. Obviously, if you start out with a black IPA, matter of fact, I just had one again probably man, 3 weeks ago, for the first time in probably at least 3 years, right? It was on the taproom board when we went out there, did our shift beer one day, and I seen it up on the board, and I said, a black IPA? You've got to be shitting me. I mean, that was literally the words out of my mouth, because very few people are doing them nowadays, right? Like there was I think a big push 4 or 5 years ago. Everybody wanted to try to do one. Really, nobody is doing them well, right? This one that I had, some are. This one that I had is probably one of the better ones that I had because it balanced out the malt really well. With the hops, it's very tough, right? In my opinion. Man, you went for the home run like the first. How the hell did you come to that point? Just not knowing any better?
Yeah, just not knowing any better. Really, to be honest with you, it was. Hey, you know what? Like I like dark beers. I like stouts. I like porters. I thought, hey, let's go for something crazy with a darker malt and a higher hop, with it, and it was a risk. And, obviously, it wasn't great, but it was still something to try on your first try, and it was definitely interesting.
Nice.
But it wasn't a drain pour, so it was drinkable.
No, it actually turned out really great, which I gave it to a bunch of people and they were like, "Man, this is pretty good for making it on your stovetop in your apartment." Like
Right. I feel like that's
awesome.
the test of your first few home brews. If it's not a drain pour, it's a success.
Right, and believe me, I've had plenty of those. It's those are not few and far between in the homebrew industry.
Yeah.
Right.
So where you at now, Rye? What's your goal for homebrewing? What are you targeting? What are you pushing yourself for?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, obviously, I have a 3-year-old, so it's hard to manage time to start brewing. But now that she's getting a little bit older and getting a little bit more free time, I try to want to dive into it a little bit more. I mean, obviously, my ultimate goal, and it's been that way for probably a good 5, 6, 7 years, was to open my own little little brewery. To be honest with you, just start small. Have a little brew pub and go from there. I mean, that's my ultimate goal.
Nice. Love it. Absolutely love it. Lucas, what was your start into the beer industry?
So my start in the beer industry is probably a little bit different. I'm only 27. So when I was in college, I got a job at the only bar in the town that I was going to college in. It was a very small school, dry campus, one bar in town. I was able to get a job there. And I had never had craft beer before. And they didn't want me to start working until after my 21st birthday so I could sample all the beers and, help sell the beers. And so I was doing samples and I was like, oh, these IPA stuff, this is pretty good. And then I had some stouts, I had some red ales, and I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. So I left school. My wife was still going to school at the time, and so I got a job at a craft beer and bottle shop, and I worked there for about 2 years. And then we decided to move down from Bowling Green, Ohio. We moved down to Columbus, and it was right when COVID first started. And so all of the breweries, I was like, I can get a job at a bottle shop, no problem. I wanted to work in the back of a house brewery somewhere. I did one home brew that was a total failure. But I was applying to places and nobody was hiring due to the pandemic. And started doing this podcast with one of my friends and landed the job interview at Crooked Can Brewing. And the head brewer actually listened to the podcast that I made. And I'm in the interview. He brings that up, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's news to me. Thank you for listening." And he offered me the cellar tech position. And I've been doing this for about 2.5 years now. So, sorry, I've been doing this for about almost 2 years now.
Nice.
Yeah.
So did he say that the podcast influenced his decision at all? Like, did he hear like, oh, okay, he knows his stuff?
I don't know if the podcast influences decision at all. Our podcast is a little bit different. My co-host knows really nothing about craft beer, and so this whole thing is like a like learning experience for him. Since we started, his knowledge has grown quite a bit. So it was kind of just like a beer podcast for people who are new to the craft beer world. But I don't know if it hurt or helped me, but
I mean,
ended up
it
getting the
shows you're
job.
passionate.
So, yeah, it shows I'm passionate. I do care about the industry and stuff like that. So, and like what Ryan was saying, my goal is to have my own small place as well. So, I'm learning to be an assistant brewer right now. So,
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
yeah.
Sounds like your co-host and I have something in common. Him and I probably need to talk. Like, I don't know shit about beer other than the styles, and I know what I enjoy. I know the business of beer, but the actual craft beer itself, I'm kind of lost. That's why I'll be honest with you guys, I'm really looking forward to Saturday brewing with Common Law, just because I've never been a part of that process from start to finish. So I'm really looking forward to being a part of that. I mean, I kind of get it because I know what happens in operations, but I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm jealous of you guys. Like, being able to make a good beer, like, that's got to be the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, I haven't figured it out yet.
Like,
Yeah, I think
if
I was
you're
gonna
leaving
say-
it up to me, we're making prison hooch out of a 5-gallon bucket with a bunch of damn rotten
Bathtub gin.
ass fruit.
Toilet wine.
Yeah, literally some toilet wine. Yeah, I'm kind of jealous.
I think one cool thing for me was, like, I remember I brewed up a batch of my pale ale one time and went to a friend's for a party and left a bunch in my friend's fridge. And the next day I see, like, on Instagram, my name tagged with, posts or whatever saying, my God, this is a great freaking beer. Like, and, it's like, you go, okay, I'm doing something right. This is awesome. Like, so
Nice.
that's like satisfaction one. Like, it's just great to see that,
Yeah,
Nice.
the last one I made, my husband's like, "Oh, is it supposed to be that color?" No, pour it down the drain. I don't know what happened. It was bad. We lost a growler too. It exploded.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never even gotten to that point. I'll be honest with you. I think my first one was like I don't even know what the hell they call them. Not a concentrate, but like a extract.
Extract kit. Yeah.
Like an extract kit. I'm sure you can probably do some of them good nowadays, but that fucking thing was a disaster.
I did a Mr. Beer kit, and that was drinkable. It just tasted like your run-of-the-mill, like, watered-down ale. And everyone was like, we kicked the plastic keg at our Memorial Day party, like, I don't know, 9 years ago. And we finished it. I mean, it tasted like beer. But then when I tried to do a legit home brew and like Ryan said, he got, started with a black IPA. I started with a New England hazy on a glass stovetop, and it did not go well. I couldn't control the temperature. And now I have a convection burner, and I just haven't had the balls to try again. And and also kids, like, having that day to be like, okay, I'm going to try this again, but to spend the money and try it again and pour it down the drain again is just going to be like, ugh.
Yeah.
But I need to do it because I have, I bought that thing. Got to do it again. Otherwise, it's just sunk cost now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you stick with it.
Yeah, it's trial and error, right? Like, it even is in production level breweries. That's why they have pilot, brewers that they can do, and pilot size brew houses and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's always an interesting conversation, especially with people when they're starting out with home brewing. I wish I had that skill and that expertise to do it. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk content creators. And it's kind of interesting because Lucas kind of falls right into this, right? Like, content creator was his first approach, or his first thing that he was doing, and now he's in the beer industry. So let's start off with Lucas. Lucas, what inspired you, one, to start the beer podcast to begin with?
So I came from a world of I did some Twitch streaming when I was in high school and college, I worked at the radio station and the TV station. And so, like, I've always done like stuff in front of a microphone before. When I was in high school, I would go to the TV station after school, and they'd be like, "Hey, Lucas, do you mind hosting this show? Do you mind hosting that show?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And so, doing stuff like that's always been something I've enjoyed. And my buddy and I, we both came from a world of Twitch streaming, and we're like, we have all the equipment already. Why don't we just sit down and have a few beers, talk about the style? And he was like, yeah, I'm all for it. I want to get into craft beer. And so we just set out on making a podcast, and it definitely helped that everybody that I knew was making podcasts. As soon as COVID happened, it feels like those just kind of like exploded when that happened. But I mean, that's pretty much how we got into it. But I've had passion for craft beer, passion for sitting in front of a camera. Gotta nurse my ego, and I just like creating content. So
very nice. Rye, how about you? You went kind of from the home brewing. Is Rye still with us, or did he freeze up on us? I think he might be knocking on the door. Let me go see if I can let him in again. Is he there? Ryan, did you make it back? I think. Oh, no worries. No worries. I think we've got you back. Let me see if I can get you added again.
I was going to say, I see two of him.
Yep. I think this one might be him. I think we have you back in there. Right. Are you there? Can you hear us? Okay. I think we have you back in here for sure. Let me get you added in on the other one. So, Rye, what's your story of going from home brewer to content creator in the beer space now?
Yeah, so I got on social media just to have fun with it, and just I think was to get my home brewing out there and to see if I could actually make it work and show pictures of my beer, the brewing process, and doing all that kind of stuff. Now obviously on TikTok I'm just making some kind of silly videos just of beers that I've been drinking, but my ultimate goal is really to kind of educate some people, to be honest with you. There's a lot of people out there that drink craft beer that obviously have no clue how the process actually works. So it's kind of nice to try to inform people on different things. I think a lot of people don't know what cryo hops are or what incognito hops are, and I'm learning the same thing, just by doing some research on or how the process goes. I think there was a couple of videos I watched something about like dry hopping, and people were kind of explaining the dry hopping process, and it wasn't right what they're explaining. And I think that misinformation, that when it gets out to people, they don't understand. So I think my goal really is to just kind of like put some videos out and be kind of informative too. While I'm doing some of these reviews of some of these things that I'm doing, is just explaining some of the situations that are brewed in the pit. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yes.
No, it makes complete sense.
Yeah, it certainly does. As a matter of fact, one of probably the most popular thing we do on our episodes is Lauren's Beer School, where she kind of educates people on everything, literally everything from ins and outs of different topics within the beer world. Certainly one of my favorite, because I've learned more from listening to Lauren than I ever have in the beer world. So
Just don't
I
drink
think
my homebrew.
Not yet, anyway. She'll get it down. She'll get it down. But it's kind of interesting to hear you say that, and that is probably one of the most popular parts of our episodes is that educational piece that Lauren does for sure. Obviously, I heard your goal, Lucas. Kind of, what's your goal? What was your goal when you started the podcast? Was it just a self-fulfilling thing, or was it? Did you have a goal outside of that?
No, I was just making a joke about the whole ego thing.
Well, I mean, honestly, some people are like that, right? Like, love to be able to in front of a mic and talk to interesting people and that sort of thing. That's a big part of what we do for me, right? Is just to be able to talk to guys like you, like to hear your story and make the connection. This will be what I take away from the podcast or this episode this time, right? Like, it's cool to get to know some other people. So kind of what's your goal behind your content that you're doing?
So, I guess the goal for our podcast was also to kind of help educate and kind of be like a welcome to the craft beer industry type thing. We've had a lot of brewers on, especially from the Columbus area. We've had a couple of the bigger breweries as well. Like we've had one of the brewers from Toppling Goliath on.
Ooh, nice.
And yeah. I was very surprised that they were like able to be like, absolutely, yeah, I would love to be on. I was like, okay. But just to hear different, because each brewery is different. Everybody makes their own. It's the same type of beer, but it's each a different way. And so we've talked to a lot of head brewers, a lot of owners and operators, like how they got started. And then usually they walk us through a tasting of their own beer online. Like we'll have 3 or 4 different beers from a particular brewery. And the brewer will come on and be like, oh, we made this beer because of this. We put this in it, and it's different because of this. So it also helps. I like to think that it helps them out as well. For people who like go to a bottle shop and they're like, well, I heard this on the podcast and the brewer made it like this because of this, so I want to try it. And that's kind of my goal. When we were doing during the pandemic, we were trying to also help some of the smaller guys here by helping people, because I would promote it on different Columbus, Ohio craft beer pages, and so like trying to help generate people to go pick up beer from this brewery and stuff like that as well. So, but it's been a lot of fun. Every episode's been like I learned something new each episode. Either it's just like even on episodes where we don't have somebody on, it's beer from like right now my co-host is in Colorado and he's bringing a bunch of beer back. The week before that, he was in Maine and he brought a bunch of beer back. So we're trying beer from all across the country, and it's a learning process for everybody involved, including me. I'm by no means like a master of craft beer or anything like that, but just try to sorry. Our motto on the show is that craft beer is for everybody, and so, for the people who have a million check-ins on Untapped compared to the person that's like, I've never had an IPA before, we try to be the show for them.
Nice. Yeah. I love it. And I love that approach, a very wholesome approach that obviously I'm sure you connect with an audience pretty well with that approach. And again, showcasing brewers at the time that they need it, like that's cool, right? Especially during the pandemic when a lot of them, I mean, that's what got us started in the live streaming thing. Mm-hmm. If I'm honest with you, we've done some podcasting and that sort of thing as Hops News, but we never ventured into the live streaming until the pandemic hit. And then it was like, well, just learning how to do it. We've live streamed concerts for breweries as fundraisers when nobody could be in their facilities and that sort of thing. So it's just kind of interesting how people evolve and how the content evolves over those times for sure. Definitely great stories, gentlemen. it's an honor to have you both on the show. And get the chance to talk with both of you. Obviously, on different, it's kind of ironic that you're on kind of different ends of the beer spectrum, right? We've got a guy that's been homebrewing for a while and done it and has had success in it, and obviously has a young family and a career. And we've got the other guy on the other end of the spectrum, kind of young, just getting into the industry and getting his feet in the door in the production scale, but have the same goals, right? Like want that own home beer feel, like their own brewery. It's kind of funny how that works out, and it'll be interesting to see where you both are at in a decade on achieving those goals. That'll be the interesting thing. So great to have you both on the show. We're going to go around the horn here again one more time, kind of get parting shots. We're going to change it up a little bit though. For the content creators, we're going to get parting shots, right? Like what's your parting shot that you want to send out to everybody? How can people find you, right? And what is something you learned on the episode? So to kick things off, we'll start with Lauren. I know that's going to be a twist for her because she's never had that one asked as well. But we'll go start with Lauren so the other two guests can think about that while we put Lauren on the spot here in Orlando. But first, Lauren, let's talk about your plans because you're going to get in Wednesday night. I know you've already got it scheduled, right? You're getting in Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night sometime in the Nashville area?
Late Wednesday, so we'll just be going to the hotel and going to bed.
Okay, but Thursday, game on.
Yes.
Where are you going?
Thursday we have we're basically going to be staying around like the music area, and we're going to be doing like Tailgate Brewery, and we're saving Bearded Iris and Southern Grist for Friday before we go to Common Law. But the mornings when we do beercations, we always try to do something active in the morning, whether we go for a run, whether we go for a hike, do something healthy before we just drink beer the rest of the day. So there will be a lot of line dancing and a lot of breweries. And we'll be on that Music Row place. So we're kind of playing it by ear because it seems like you can walk to a lot of the places. Everything in Nashville seems very close. So we might go to some caves in the morning, and then we'll be, as soon as the breweries open around like 1-ish, 2-ish, we'll just be drinking the rest of the day. And then I'm going line dancing at some point Thursday night. That is the plan for me. And then Friday, we're going to go for a run at Centennial Park, and then we're going to do Bearded Iris, Southern Grist, and head to Common Law.
Are you guys staying in Nashville the whole weekend at the same place?
No, just Wednesday and Thursday night, and then we're staying like 5 minutes from the brewery on Friday and Saturday.
Okay. Yeah, we're staying down there somewhere. I think we're staying in Franklin, but we'll be in town. Should get to town Friday afternoon at some point. We'll be at the brewery, obviously, for the start of the bottle share. I figure you'd have it all penciled out. I'm impressed. Yep.
Yes, I have my list here. I have Jackalope, Bearded Eyes, where we will be ending the night.
Nice. That sounds like a good start to it for sure. Parting shots, Lauren. Where can people find you? What do we have to look forward to from Geeks? Because I know you guys are working on some awesome things there. And then the last thing, what's something you learned on today's episode?
That one's going to be hard. Okay. So for Geeks, yes, I know a lot of people in the Discord may not. I know it gets confusing. I actually changed my name. So Matt and I run the Hops Geek News, which is a spinoff of Hops News. And so Matt and I this week, we released an episode about the comic book origin of Jane Foster, who is Mighty Thor, and the comic book origin of Gore, who is the villain that Christian Bale is playing in the movie. Saw the movie last night. It's fantastic. No spoilers. But we had 2 guests come on. We had Spider-Man Oklahoma from another podcast. Then we had the Hop Circles, who is Jamal from in Orlando, join all sorts of origin. We talked a little bit of Multiverse Madness. And then we talked theories, which, I learned last night we weren't exactly correct, but we were correct a little bit about some things. And next week, we are just going to be doing basically, because we're going to have to record early since we're flying out. So The Boys just ended, Stranger Things just ended, and we just saw Thor. So we're going to be doing kind of a reaction podcast, but we always have our news and we always have fun facts. So I'm going to have lots of fun facts about The Boys and lots of fun facts about Stranger Things. And we'll end with Thor for anybody who hasn't seen it, so you know when to stop and you don't get spoilers. And then Miss Marvel, I'm sure we'll talk about the following week. But I mean, there's so much great content right now. Matt and I are having a lot of fun talking news, geek news, talking all sorts of geek stuff, and of course, we always do it over a delicious craft beer. So that's what we got going on for geeks, and yeah, that's about it. So what did I learn? Shit, Jay, this one's hard. I should have been taking notes the whole time. Well, I learned yesterday about the Crooked Can. I had no idea that was in Ohio, so I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
I learned that somebody who is 27 can start drinking craft beer the second they turn 21, and they never had to drink Budweiser. So
well, I definitely didn't drink any Budweiser or any Natty Ice or anything like that. I solely started drinking when I turned 21.
I mean, when I turned 21, I didn't even know what craft beer was. That was a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, sorry to put you on the spot there, Lauren, but I knew you could handle the pressure.
Does that count? My answer counts?
Yeah, we'll take it. We'll accept it this time. Hey, yeah, great stuff from the geeks. One more.
I learned you can homebrew with wet hops from your backyard.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, I don't know that I've ever met somebody that was able to produce a yield of hops enough in their backyard that they could use it. That's awesome. I like it. It probably, I would imagine, probably the area of the country as well, because like the Southeast is probably pretty difficult, right, to produce hops. Yeah.
We're getting there.
Close. Like they're developing strains more and more that are a little bit more heat tolerant, but yeah, interesting.
I think Zeus does really good down here.
Nice. So can we get some Zeus hops from Lauren's backyard?
No, I had a Cascade in my backyard. It only lasted a year and a half. But the Apopka hop farm we have, they have a bunch of Zeus.
Nice.
Only certain times of the year.
Yeah. Go check out the Hops Geek news content. Those guys are crushing it in the geeks world. Absolutely crushing it. Definitely appreciate what you guys do there. Lauren, looking forward to drinking a beer with you soon.
Dev, I'm belly up to the bar.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. Might have to get Josh to drive us back to the rooms.
That's fine. I volunteer him.
Yeah, great to have you on. Let's go check in with Lucas. Lucas, parting shots. Where can people find you on the social medias, and what'd you learn on tonight's episode?
So on the social medias, you can find me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and on Instagram right now. We've partnered with Seltzerland, and we are currently doing a giveaway for 2 VIP tickets to the Columbus Seltzerland on July 30th. It's a seltzer festival with over 100 seltzers, so should be a good time. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere that you listen, iHeartRadio, anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you can find us under Pint Pals Podcast. What I learned today is that you can homebrew a delicious black IPA. I was going to use the wet hopping from, but it's definitely. I had to go with Ryan making a black IPA at home that turned out good. I haven't had too many black IPAs, but I'm glad that people can make a good one at home.
Yeah,
that's what I came up with.
It's definitely not an easy accomplishment, right? And hats off to him for sure. Lucas, it's been fun to have you on, man. Hope you join us again for another one of these.
It's been great to be on. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Hopefully we've made it a little bit easier, because I know what it's like being on the production side of things, kind of hosting it and trying to push the buttons and everything. So hopefully tonight's been a little bit easier for you and been able to enjoy it a little bit more.
I enjoy it either way. So
awesome.
Thank you so much.
Man. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Let's go check in with Rye. Rye, parting shots. Where can people find you, and what's something you learned tonight?
So you can find me on TikTok, Blackjaw Brew. Same with Instagram, same thing there. I go by the username there. I think Twitter is the same thing, but I don't post too much on Twitter. One thing that I learned about is how to do a podcast, to be honest with you. I started a podcast a a while ago. I used to do music and beer reviews all in the same podcast. I was not very good at it. I was just doing it basically off of Audacity and just kind of recording my thoughts, and not as complex as this, but I'm grateful that you guys have offered to have me on.
All right, we certainly appreciate you joining us tonight, and it's good to hear a story from somebody that's brewed a black.
Here's my first homebrew, by the way.
Nice. That's
There's the
awesome,
bottle from
man. Yeah, that's awesome. I was just going to say, good to hear from somebody that
top cap too.
Hey, that even makes it even better. Good to hear from somebody whose first homebrew was a black IPA that was decent. That's the most impressive thing so far. So appreciate you joining us.
They're underrated.
Yeah, I agree. I certainly agree. Appreciate you joining us, and hope to have you back on again for another Content Creators Happy Hour for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me. It's been fun.
So I didn't talk about what I started out with. I started out with a Blackberry Smoke, an American lager by New Realm here. Hey, as always, you can check out Hops News on any of the podcast platforms or social media networks at Hops News. I'm stoked about next week. Like, Common Law event has been a thing that we have talked about for absolutely years. I don't think that Matt has completely committed yet to being there, but I will say the last text that I saw from him this afternoon was like he's really close to biting the $900 bullet. So, and that would be to get a flight out to Nashville from Boise, Idaho. So I'm hoping he makes it. I have yet to meet him in person. I think, Lauren, have you met Matt in person yet?
Yes.
That's
right.
right.
At Disney, when he came to Disney last year. So we got to actually go to Galaxy's Edge together and go to the cantina together. And then my daughter watched all of our little ones, and we had a whole brew day together. So we got to meet the whole family. That's
right. You're the common bond. Like, you're the only one that's met everybody. So hopefully one day we can meet Matt as well. But what I learned tonight, I'm going to go with the black IPA. I learned that somebody's actually brewed a black IPA for the first time, and it was a success. Because I'll be honest with you, I've had a lot of black IPAs, and I can probably count on one hand how many that I would drink again. So to say that you've done that on your own is pretty impressive on your first one. But definitely appreciate everybody tuning in. We will drop this episode. I think everything turned out pretty well. We'll drop this episode on the podcast sometime this weekend. Hey, till next time, everybody, I appreciate it. Drink responsibly, and check us out. We won't be back for an episode, I don't think, this next week because we'll all be traveling towards the Nashville area. But we will be live Saturday at Common Law to check in with Brad about the brew day that we're having. So check us out there. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Go ahead.
One more announcement that I completely forgot. Geeks will have an episode dropping Sunday night where we interviewed a guy who has written many comic books, and he has a Spider-Man comic book coming out this month. So you're definitely going to want to check out that podcast. It was an awesome interview. He's done a lot of cool shit. So, yeah, and you can find us under Hops News. Just search Hops News wherever you listen to podcasts.
Awesome. Lauren's all about the really cool shit, people.
Everybody should be all about cool shit.
Hey, appreciate everybody tuning in. Drink responsibly. Don't overindulge.
And if you do, take your happy hour vitamins.
Yes.
And don't drive.
We will have happy hour vitamins and IVs, liquid IVs next weekend. Hey, appreciate you guys.
Yeah, appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, been fun. Stay connected in the podcasting channel, and we'll do it again in a few weeks.
Yeah, I just followed both y'all on the Instagram under the Geek account. And yours says world's worst homebrewer or something, or worst homebrewer. Ryan's profile says that.
Ryan's
my tagline, you know.
Oh, Ryan, you don't give yourself enough credit, man.
It's just a running joke.
I feel like I win that title. Don't try to take my title. No, I need to try again. The hazy was green and it exploded.
I have
and-
plenty of stories of batches gone wrong.
Yeah, see, I guess I just need to do it more and kind of fix my, because I'm only a 50% success rate. But if I do it again and I fail again, then I'm a 66% failure rate. So, but if I do better,